Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of It Takes a Viking, the official podcast of the Salem State University Alumni Association. And we are so excited to welcome the new Salem State Athletic Director, Nicolle Wood, from the class of 1995 to join us today.
Hi, thanks for
Coach,
having me.
how you doing?
I'm good. I'm honored to be a Viking, honored to be an alumni, and definitely honored to have the opportunity to speak now as the Director of Athletics. So thank you for having me.
Oh, sure. We're looking forward to it. Should be a great conversation. Let's get right into it. So as a graduate yourself, the Director of Athletics, tell us how you ended up. How did you end up at Salem State?
So it wasn't a straight line, that's for sure. When I was in high school, I was lucky enough to be looked at by a few universities. One was a D2 that was transitioning to D1, Quinnipiac University. It was my top choice, actually. I wanted to do physical therapy or occupational therapy. And I had verbally committed to go there. My senior year, my father became ill. Salem State was kind of on the bottom of my list as a backup school. My dad had a heart attack that was serious enough that I was not feeling too comfortable about being, 4 to 5 hours away while my mother was dealing with his illness. So I decided to stay at Salem State instead for, in my mind, what would be a semester, and then transfer to Quinnipiac by the spring. It just so happened that I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be, and I never looked back. I felt at home instantly, and I realized that my dad's illness was a blessing in disguise, because I would have ended up going somewhere to chase the ability to say that I played D2 athletics versus somewhere that was the right fit for me. So yeah, it was an interesting way to get there, but one that I'm really grateful for.
And it's so interesting because we hear so often that that's a similar experience for a lot of people. They hadn't originally planned to come here. Then they get here and they fall in love with the place, and they end up sticking around forever. And, we just hope that more and more folks will realize how great of a school it is, and how impactful our alumni are, not only locally, but abroad as well. So you're in your new role, Director of Athletics,
Mm-hmm.
previously serving as the Associate AD, right?
Yep.
So let's take a couple steps back. When did you realize that you had wanted to go into collegiate athletics, and kind of what brought you to that process?
So I think I always knew I wanted to work in athletics. I'm not sure that at first I knew that it was in the capacity that it became. But I was originally, when I got out of college, I was the sports health and fitness director at the JCC in Marblehead. So I was working with a different community, really community-based health and fitness, a lot of prevention in terms of doing things with our older clients to make sure that they had a reduced risk of falls or injuries from falls. I realized at some point in that career that I wanted to work with a different set of athletes. And I went to high performance sports medicine. I was blessed to know Dr. Bradley, who was the president there. And he gave me the opportunity as their director of programs. So I was able to work more directly with collegiate student athletes. We did a lot of injury prevention and conditioning to get them ready to safely and in a standard of excellence pursue their college careers. And I think that in working with them, I had started to be the part-time assistant coach at Salem about 10 years prior, and I loved it. And I think with each year, the connection between both my background in soccer and in athletics and conditioning started to kind of merge more with my idea and my passion for kind of being impactful and making a difference, and using that platform that athletics gave us to really make a difference in how these student athletes saw themselves, how we help them kind of get to the finish line, as my colleague, Coach Harvey, says all the time. So I think it was, I don't know that I knew college athletics would be the setting, but I certainly knew that some sort of career in athletics and sports and fitness was something I wanted to do from an early age.
And so understanding that a Division III athletics program is probably different than that of a Division II or Division I. What are some of the day-to-day challenges that you might be up against as a Division III athletic director that maybe someone at a Division II or Division I level might not be up against?
So I think resources is obviously a big one. The ability in terms of scheduling teams and programming, given that we have one main field that most of our sports teams play on. There's some of the facilities issues that a lot of the D2s and D1s that are fully funded don't deal with. Obviously, there's an arms race in those two divisions in terms of scholarships, but I will tell you, I have friends that are coaches and athletic directors in those divisions, and it's not a battle that I'm suited for, would want to deal with.
Okay.
I think that we see ourselves as an opportunity for student athletes who are of a pretty high caliber of talent and skill in their sport to also have that balance to pursue a meaningful academic career. And I think that sometimes merging those two and being able to tell that message when you have a student athlete who is, being offered money to go to one of the local D2s or D1s, that's a battle that sometimes we struggle with, and we struggle with supporting our coaches and getting that messaging out. But I think as well, they have battles and issues that we don't, and some that are similar. So I think that, the gift that Tim Shea gave me when he started to give me more responsibility when I started full-time at Salem was I was able to attend a lot of the NCAA meetings and conference meetings. And even at the national meetings, I would go and sit and speak with colleagues from D1 and D2, and you'd be surprised that a lot of the problems we have are the same problems that they have. It's just that the solutions are usually a little bit different based on how creative and resourceful we have to be, and them having a bit of a bigger checkbook.
Okay. So you mentioned Tim Shea. Let's go back into the vaults a little bit. So you were a 4-year player at Salem State on the soccer program. Was there a game or a championship or anything like that stands out to you as one of your fondest memories as a student athlete?
So, I mean, I have a few. I was so lucky that, I came to Salem and my first 2 seasons, I sat on the bench for most of the time. I was sitting behind Vicky Hernandez, who was an amazing goalkeeper, still holds records in D3. I was competing with someone in my class, Kristen Taylor, who was also an amazing goalkeeper, very, very talented, top recruit out of high school. So those first few years, I was humbled quite a bit. But I also, again, realized that just the excitement around our program, I mean, we were in the top 25 in the nation. We ended one season 4th in the nation in rankings. So we played against some pretty big time schools, and even being on the bench, I have memories of us. We tied the #1 team in the country, I think my sophomore year. I have vivid memories of it because I was on the bench watching and cheering my teammates on. We tied UMass Dartmouth the year that they were national finalists. I think the biggest memory that I have for me is my senior year. So I actually was a 5-year player. I did have a knee injury, and I had to come back. And that first year that I returned as a player, my entire recruiting class was gone, and we had a new coach, and everything was really, really different. And I struggled with coming back from the injury, and also just the different climate of what our team had been. And we had gone down a bit competitively that season, which was difficult for me. When we played Fitchburg State, I remember that a player ripped a shot. So, despite my stature, I was a goalkeeper in college. And I remember that a player ripped a shot. We were up a goal at the time. And it was one of those shots where the player and her teammates celebrated before it went in because they assumed there was no way I was getting to it as a 5'3" goalkeeper. And I blacked out for a minute. And I remember hearing the crowd cheer and watching the bar go over the ball go over the bar. And I knew I had made the save. And my dad was in the stands, and I didn't know. My dad never told me when he came to games. And my dad was in the stands, and I just heard him, screaming, "That a girl, Nick, that a girl, Nick." And I heard him above everything else. And I remember that moment as if it happened yesterday. And I'm really, really grateful for that. It was like the save of a lifetime and a big game with my dad there my senior year after I had struggled so much. That was pretty special.
So then transitioning from player to, coach sometime after, is there a particular game or memory that you have as a coach that stands out to you more than anything?
Well, I have quite a few. We've been, I've been very fortunate with the players that have come in and supported the program that I've been able to coach. We've had some big wins. I know that the easy default is last year, 2 years ago, excuse me, Worcester State, who's our big rival, and we've always had trouble with in playoffs, was undefeated in the conference, top seed. They had beaten us during the season, and we went there and upset them in a night game in double overtime. We always lost when I was in college on penalty kicks. We always saw our season end at the national tournament on PKs, and we went to PKs and we ended up winning. And I know that for the team and the girls in the program, it was like this defining moment where we had pushed past the top team. But believe it or not, I think my best memory as a coach is in a spring game that didn't mean anything against Wheaton College at a tournament where Wheaton was ranked, again, they were the Salem State at the time. They were ranked in the top 12 in the nation. We played them in the spring game. We had 10 players total, including a goalkeeper that we put on the field to play against one of the best teams in the nation. And we just came up with this game plan, and the girls bought in, and, we worked really hard for 90 minutes and we ended up tying them. And it was a huge upset back then for, a Salem State team that had struggled for a few years to come in with 10 players and take on Wheaton, which was one of the best in the nation. And again, a mean nothing game on paper, but I know for the players that day, it changed the way that they thought about what it meant to compete as a team versus relying on one goal scorer or one defender or a goalkeeper to make save after save. I mean, our game plan was basically, we're all going to work really hard and we're going to keep the ball as long as we can so that they don't have a chance to score. And it worked. So I think for me, that was probably the best memory I have as a coach, believe it or not.
Okay. So we've covered your time as a player, time as a coach. Summer 2020, you're named athletic director for the department now, coming on at what is obviously a very unique time in not only the world, but specifically in college programs and athletics. What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to as AD, and what do you see about potential challenges in the future for your program?
Well, I think the challenge is definitely COVID right now, right? I think that we're in a situation where the connection that we know leads student athletes to success in other arenas aside from actually being in their sport, that connection right now is something that we need to be really creative and intentional about recreating. So we are doing some in-person training right now, but we're very limited to what we can do. Where all of our sports right now, we're in small groups, they're wearing masks. So we're following all the guidelines, which are really important for us to follow. And our student athletes have bought into that. I think the difficulty is knowing what's next. So, we feel like we're building towards something, but we've learned since March that in 24 hours, everything can change so quickly.
Yeah.
So I see that as a challenge. I think that uncertainty for any student and, any human being is a really difficult thing to deal with. But the momentum that we usually have when we as teams and as coaches, we're allowed to have a preseason and we're allowed to push them through a preseason and, have them come together as a team. I think that sitting in the seat that I am now, I'm just looking at how can we support all of our coaches to come up with ways to do that, involve maybe some mediums they're not comfortable with, like social media or Zoom or some of the virtual stuff. How do we do it in a way that's really going to connect our student athletes? Because our challenge is not so much playing against outside teams and chasing a championship right now. It's keeping our student athletes engaged and retained and successful in the classroom and in the community and continuing to help develop them. And without that in-person connection, it's a challenge that I think all athletics directors, all coaches, anyone that works in athletics is faced.
And so,
in terms of being excited, I'm excited every day, Mike, when I walk into that office. I love, our students, our student athletes, the ability. In a meeting the other day, someone referred to me as Coach Wood, and then someone corrected them and said AD Wood. And I almost had to say, who are they talking about? I think that I'm just excited about what our student athletes are capable of, both on the field and off. I really think that getting back to focusing on the student athlete experience, on what that means, on making sure that they have the experience that I had, that they find mentors that look like them, that they can connect to. I think that we're in a position where a lot of students are making different decisions about where they go to college now because of COVID. And a lot of people, again, maybe are following that broken road that they end up at Salem State when they thought their definition of success would be something different before all this happened. So I think there's a lot of silver lining. We just have to be focused and intentional on finding it.
Yeah, finding opportunity in every challenge is something I think us scrappy, resourceful, smaller schools are pretty good at in the world. So let's talk about college athletics for a minute, in addition to what you've already mentioned. If there was a student sitting in a class somewhere right now that said, I think college athletics might be a unique career opportunity for me, something I've always thought about, what do you think would be a good place for them to start?
I think mentors. I
Okay.
think finding mentors in the field, and not finding one, finding different people in different roles. I really think that that's where you start. I think that, like anything else, where you end up in athletics has to be a good fit. It's long hours, like many jobs in higher ed, it's really long hours. There's so much planning that goes into it. A lot of our coaches are part-time coaches. A lot of jobs in college athletics are part-time. And the amount of hours you put in before you even get to the field, are going to outweigh your paycheck in many cases. So I think finding mentors to find out what other avenues there are, making sure that you have a really holistic approach to what athletics is, because I think a lot of times people assume it's about coaching and X's and O's. And I learned early on, and again, I'm grateful for the experience that Tim Shea offered me with the responsibilities he gave me, but that holistic view of what athletics means and what it can be in the life of a student athlete is something that anyone thinking about getting into college athletics needs to really find people, seek people who understand that. And figure out what your core values are. You have to know what your core values are to figure out where is a good fit for you, because no matter how skilled you are, I've seen coaches that played D1 that have then tried to coach in D3, and it's really difficult for them because that's not an experience that they can relate to or value. So I do think it's important that they know what's important to them, they know what they want to accomplish, and they find some mentors to help them find ways to get their foot in the door somewhere that's a good fit.
And as you're talking, it's very easy to see the passion that you hold for this kind of work, but I'm curious if there was anything else. Could you see yourself doing anything else professionally in this life, or do you think that this is always what you wanted to do?
Well, I think this is what I meant to do. I think that and it's not just about, being able to stay in sports. It's about being able to have an impact on these student athletes' lives. I think about my time at Salem State, and it was transformative. I came in kind of a brokenhearted kid who really had these illusions of grandeur about where they belonged in the world of college athletics. And I found a home where there were people that helped to see that there was more in me than just a, kind of stubborn, hard-headed, way over competitive athlete. And I think that being in this position and being able to have that same impact on student athletes, that to me is where I'm supposed to be. What else I would do? That's a good question. I honestly think that I would probably, we have a nonprofit that we started in my father's memory for Operation Homefront, which works with veterans. My niece and I started that, and it's something that we do a road race every year to raise money for Operation Homefront. But I think if I had more time, I would probably make that a full-time thing. I think I would dedicate more time to it. We do a lot of work with military children. So my dad's race in particular, we raise money to do a backpack drive for kids whose parents are deployed. We fill the backpacks, we do the shopping for them with the money we raise as they get back to school. So I think that that's probably, the nonprofit world would probably be where I'd want to land.
So it seems like your heart is always set on impactful work and nothing else, which is always nice.
It's something I was grateful to inherit from my dad. I think that he didn't teach me anything about sports except to not be such a bad sport when I lost. But he did teach me a lot about how to go about being a leader and how to treat people and how to connect with people that, have the same values as you. And I think that that's something that makes me love the work I do at Salem State. Despite all the challenges that we've had and changes that we've gone through, I'm surrounded by some pretty great coaches, student athletes, and administrators that share the same core values that I do of being impactful. So yeah, it makes it a lot easier to continue in this work.
And so now you're a department head at the university, an alum yourself, a coach. But I just, as we talk about the D3 collegiate athletic experience, as you look at some of the other divisions 1 and 2, so often you hear about the big contracts and the sponsorship deals and things like that. But I think one of the things that separates the Division 3 level from those other levels is that you have the opportunity as a graduate yourself, but knowing many other graduates, to be able to really connect with student athletes and the programs and the coaches. So I guess the final question that I'll ask is, how can alumni support the athletic program, either at an operational level, at a professional level for students? What are some ways that the alumni community of Salem State can help?
So I would say the first way is that mentoring opportunity. So we are always looking to partner with alumni who are in different professions in different fields, to help bring them back, to get them in front of our student athletes and talk about their experience or their profession, to give them tips on their career, to talk about transferable skills that they took away from their experience at Salem State. I think that that is one that we always want to continue to develop, that relationship with alumni. I also think that it's really important for alumni just to come back. I'm hopeful that at some point soon we're going to have events again and we're going to have matches again. And I always enjoy our alumni game with women's soccer every year because of that. I enjoy it because I usually get to get out on the field again and play and show the girls that coach still knows a thing or two about the game. But I think for me, we have all these amazing women that come back and play, and their moms and their business people, and they're older, but they come back and they put that uniform on for the alumni game. And the pride that you see they carry from their time as a Viking is something that I really think affects our student athletes. And it gives them that sense again that, wow, this is a place that people might have overlooked, but it's a pretty amazing place to develop in as a student and as a human being. So I think those connections are what we look for. I think that our alumni have so much to offer our current students, even though our experiences were different. The experience of coming to Salem State and being part of that community is something that I think means a lot to our kids, and seeing the success that people have. And again, knowing it's a broken road sometimes, but along the way, you just build so much grit and so much resilience that really does help you to compete with people that maybe graduate with a degree from, an SCAC or an Ivy League school. It's not about the degree, it's about the work and the things that you learned earning that degree. And I really think that's what our students can hear from our alumni.
And you're absolutely right. I think it really is it's something that spans across any generation of Salem State student athlete, but also just Salem State student in general, is that the typical student that comes to our school, they have just this thirst for knowledge, this thirst for life. They want to better themselves. And like I said, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a student, whether you're a performer, it spans across all generations and all kinds of students that are here with us. And I think really that is the testament of what makes a Salem State student, just like you and I when we were students here. So listen, Coach, I really appreciate your time. I know it's a busy time of year for you this year. And in your new role, it's going to be a busy time of year for you every season at this point. So we appreciate you joining us on the podcast, and, best of luck this year with all the new changes coming up.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great to talk to you, Mike. Thank you.
Sure. And that was Nicolle Wood, class of 95, our new athletic director at Salem State. And this has been another episode of It Takes a Viking, the official podcast of the Salem State University Alumni Association. Thanks for watching.